35 years thrown away with a single text message. I can't do this anymore, Connie. I found someone who truly makes me happy. My world collapsed right there in the kitchen of our Green Hills home while I was peeling potatoes for the Sunday lunch he'd never eat. The potatoes rolled across the floor, and I stood frozen, clutching my phone with trembling hands, rereading those words as if they were in a foreign language. What did he mean? He couldn't do it anymore? Found someone. Me, who'd done everything for him, raised our 2 kids practically on my own while he built his construction company, never complained about the late nights he came home, swallowed every humiliation from his wealthy family who treated me like an outsider from day one. I sank to the kitchen floor, right there among the scattered potatoes, and sobbed. I cried like I hadn't since my mom passed away. I cried for all the birthdays he forgot, for every time he said I'd let myself go, for all the family parties where I felt invisible, for every dream I buried to make his come true. I cried because, at 52, I was alone, with no career, no money of my own, nothing that was truly mine except some clothes in the closet and a wedding ring that now felt like it weighed 10 pounds on my finger. The phone rang, and I thought it might be him, that he'd changed his mind, that it was all a cruel joke. It was my neighbor, Yvonne, asking if everything was okay because she'd heard some shouting. I hadn't even realized I'd screamed. I told her everything was fine, just the TV turned up too loud. I couldn't talk to anyone yet. I couldn't even process what was happening. I got up, picked up the potatoes, washed my face, and kept cooking lunch. I don't know why, but I did. Maybe it was habit, maybe desperation, maybe pure denial. I made the black-eyed peas he loved, the cornbread casserole, the fried okra. I set the table for 4, like I always did when the boys came over. Except this time, they weren't coming. This time, no one was. The silence in the house was deafening. This big Green Hills house, the one he loved showing off to his friends, now felt like a mausoleum. Every corner held a memory of us. The living room where we watched Titans games, him yelling at the TV while I pretended to care about football just to have something to talk about. The porch where we used to have coffee in the early years of our marriage, when he still looked me in the eyes and asked how I'd slept. The bedroom where our kids were conceived, where we last made love over a year ago, where he'd been sleeping with his back to me for so long, I'd gotten used to the emptiness on my side of the bed. I called Ryan, our oldest. He picked up on the 3rd ring, his voice rushed as always. "Hey Mom, you good? I'm in the middle of a meeting. Can this be quick?" I couldn't say anything. I just held the phone, listening to him on the other end, until he hung up. I tried Luke, the youngest, but it went to voicemail. I left a message asking him to call me back, trying to keep my voice steady, but it came out shaky, broken. The afternoon dragged on. I wandered the house, touching his things, looking for clues about when it all started to fall apart. I opened his closet and caught the scent of the Hugo Boss cologne I got him every Christmas, the one he loved. His clothes were all there, neatly organized like I always kept them. When did he stop noticing that I made sure everything was perfect for him? When did I become just another piece of furniture in this house? I grabbed his laptop, always left on the dresser. I knew the password. It was Ryan's birthday, our firstborn. How naive I was, thinking he wouldn't betray me because he used our son's birthday as his password. I opened WhatsApp on the browser, and my heart nearly stopped. There was a chat with Blossom. The messages made my stomach turn. "My beautiful, can't wait to see you. You make me feel alive again. Soon we'll be together forever." The last message was from her. "Did you tell her yet?" And his reply, "Just sent the text. Now we wait for her to move out so you can move in." Move out. My house. The house I cleaned, organized, decorated for 20 years. The house where I raised my kids, hosted my friends, dreamed of grandkids playing in the backyard. He wanted me gone so his mistress could move in. And the worst part? I didn't even know who Blossom was. Never heard of her. She could be anyone. The new secretary, a client's daughter, one of those young women he hired at the company who always looked at him like he was a god. I closed the laptop and sat on the bed. Our bed. Where we slept together for so many years, where he told me about his plans, his dreams, the future he wanted to build. I always listened, always supported, always agreed. When he wanted to expand the company and needed the money I'd inherited from my mom, I gave it without hesitation. When he wanted to buy that overpriced lot in Franklin, I sold the jewelry my grandmother left me. When he wanted to trade in his car for that BMW, I canceled the trip to New York I'd always dreamed of taking. It was always about him, his dreams, his wants, his success. And me? What was left for me? An empty house, 2 friends who only showed up when they needed something, 2 sons who called once a month to check if I was okay, and the humiliation of being replaced by some blossom after 35 years of total devotion. The phone rang again. It was him. I answered on the first ring, with a foolish hope that he'd apologize, say it was a moment of madness, that he loved me and was coming home. "Connie, I know this must be hard for you, but you need to understand this isn't about you. It's about me, what I need in my life now." His voice was different, firmer, like he was reading a script. "You've always been a good wife, a good mom, but we both know we haven't been happy together for years." "We both know?" I finally managed to speak. "I didn't know anything, Gilbert. I thought we were fine, that this was normal after so many years together." He sighed on the other end. "Connie, let's not pretend. We haven't been intimate in over a year. We barely talk. You're always complaining about everything." Complaining about everything? When did I ever complain? I always swallowed it all, turned a blind eye, pretended everything was fine, even when it wasn't. "And now what, Gilbert? What's going to happen to me?" The question came out in a whisper, and I hated how weak, how dependent I sounded. "Look, we'll sort it out civilly. You can stay in the house for now until we figure out how to split everything. But it won't take long because me and Fiona want to get married soon." Fiona. So that was Blossom's real name. And they were already planning to marry. What was the rush? "How long have you known her?" I asked, already dreading the answer. 2 years, he said without hesitation. "She worked at the real estate agency that sold those condos we built in East Nashville. She's an incredible woman, Connie. Smart, beautiful, independent. She has her own real estate business, understands my work, challenges me, makes me want to be a better person." Every word was a stab. He was comparing me to her, diminishing me to justify his betrayal. He hung up saying he'd come by the weekend to pick up some clothes and that it'd be better if I wasn't home to avoid an awkward situation for everyone. Awkward for everyone. Like I was the problem, the obstacle, the pebble in his shoe. I sat there, phone in hand, until the screen went dark. The sun was setting outside, painting the Nashville sky with those orange and pink hues I'd always loved. How many times had Gilbert and I sat on that porch watching the sunset, planning our future, dreaming together? And now he was planning a future with someone else, watching the sunset with someone else, dreaming with someone else. Night came, and I still hadn't eaten. The food I'd cooked sat cold and untouched in the pots. I opened a bottle of wine we'd gotten last Christmas and never opened. Gilbert always said wine was for pretentious rich folks, that beer was for real people. Well, tonight I wanted to be pretentious. I wanted to drink wine, cry, and feel sorry for myself until I couldn't anymore. The wine was sweet, smooth. With every sip, I felt warmth in my throat and a strange courage rising in my chest. I picked up my phone and started typing a message to him. Deleted it, typed again, deleted again. What did I want to say? That I was hurting? He already knew. That it wasn't fair. Life's never been fair. That I loved him? What difference did it make if he didn't love me anymore? Then the intercom buzzed. It was almost 9 at night. Who could it be? I answered, a bit woozy from the wine, and the voice on the other end sent a chill down my spine. "Connie? It's Tony, Gilbert's dad. Can I come up?" Tony Sullivan, the richest man in Nashville, according to the magazines. Owner of construction companies, shopping malls, luxury condos all over the city. The man who'd always looked at me like I was an intruder in his family, treated me like a servant for years, never missing a chance to remind me I was just a girl from East Nashville who got lucky with a good marriage. What was he doing here at this hour? How did he know what had happened? Had Gilbert already told everyone? I buzzed him in and rushed to the bathroom mirror. What a mess. Puffy eyes from crying, hair a tangle, shirt all wrinkled. I ran a comb through my hair, slapped on some lipstick, trying to look halfway presentable. I didn't want Tony to see me completely broken. The humiliation of being dumped by his son was enough. The doorbell rang, and I braced myself for another dose of disdain, another jab about how I'd never been good enough for the Sullivan family. But when I opened the door, I didn't find the cold, arrogant man I knew. Tony looked different. His usually hard, calculating eyes were soft, almost sad. He held a bouquet of white flowers and seemed hesitant, like he wasn't sure what to do. "Connie," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "Can I come in? I need to talk to you." I stepped aside, still trying to make sense of it. In 35 years of marriage, Tony had never visited me, never brought flowers, never spoken to me unless it was out of social obligation or to throw a subtle dig about my humble roots. He walked into the living room, looking around like he was seeing the house for the first time. "You've always made this place so beautiful," he said, almost whispering. "It's always been warm, welcoming, different from the others." I didn't know what to say. I was expecting criticism, not compliments. I offered coffee, like I always did, but he shook his head and sat on the couch, gesturing for me to sit too. "Connie, I know what my son did today," he told me. His words carried something I'd never heard in Tony's voice before: shame. And I came here to apologize, not just for him, but for me too. For all these years, I was speechless. Tony Sullivan apologizing to me? This had to be a dream, or the wine was hitting harder than I thought. "Mr. Tony, you don't have to." He raised a hand, cutting me off. "I do, Connie. I really do." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for a moment he seemed more fragile, more human. "You know, I started with nothing, absolutely nothing. Son of a factory worker in Clarksville, worked construction since I was 12, slept on job sites, went hungry. When I started making money, when the wealth came, I think I lost my way a bit. I thought I needed to surround myself with high-class people, folks born with silver spoons, to prove I'd made it." He paused, staring at his hands. "And when Gilbert brought you home, a beautiful, kind, hard-working girl who clearly loved my son more than life itself, I should have welcomed you with open arms. I should have treated you like the daughter I never had. But instead, I treated you like you weren't good enough for the Sullivan family. Like love didn't matter more than a fancy last name or a fat bank account." Tears streamed down my face again. Not tears of sadness, but something else. Relief, maybe, or validation. Something I'd waited 35 years to hear and never thought I would. "You always made me feel like an outsider," I managed to say, my voice shaky. "Like I'd tricked Gilbert somehow, like I didn't deserve to be here." Tony lowered his head. "I know, honey, and I'm so sorry for that. Sorry for spending all these years blind, only seeing what I wanted to see. You raised 2 wonderful boys, took care of my son better than he deserved, made this house a real home, and I never thanked you for it, never acknowledged what you did for all of us." He stood and paced the room, touching objects, looking at photos on the shelf. He stopped at one from last Christmas, the whole family together. "You know what Gilbert told me today when he came to tell me about this woman?" His voice hardened when he mentioned Fiona. "He said you two had nothing in common anymore, that you'd gotten complacent, that he needed someone who challenged him. Want to know what I told him?" I stayed silent, waiting. Tony turned to me, his eyes blazing with anger. "I told him he was a damn fool, that he was throwing away the best thing that ever happened to him for some fleeting fantasy, some midlife crisis fling. That at 55, he was acting like a 15-year-old who just discovered there are other women out there." "You really said that?" I asked, incredulous. Tony had always backed Gilbert, always taken his side, even when it was clear he was wrong. "Damn right I did. And I said more. I told him if he went through with this nonsense, he'd have to choose between the company and his mistress. Because I won't have my name tied to a man who abandons his family after 35 years to play house with someone new." My heart raced. Was Tony serious? Was he really on my side? "But he's your son, Mr. Tony. You'd cut ties with your own son for me?" He sat back down, closer now. Connie, you don't get it yet, do you? You're not an outsider in this family. You are this family. You held everything together when I was too busy building an empire. You raised my grandsons, supported my daughter-in-law when she had postpartum depression, planned every birthday, every Christmas, every celebration that made us feel like a real family. He took my hand. His skin was rough, calloused, a reminder that despite all his wealth, he'd worked hard his whole life. And more than that, honey, I've watched you these past years, seen how you handle things, how you treat everyone with kindness, how you never lost your humility despite marrying into money. And I realized something. I admire you. I admire you so much. Mr. Tony. I couldn't say more. It was too much information, too much emotion for one day. First the betrayal, now this unexpected declaration of support and affection. Let me finish, Connie, please. He squeezed my hand. When my wife passed 5 years ago, you were the only one who genuinely cared about me. Not my money, not what I could do for you, but me. You'd show up at my house unannounced with food, sit and talk, listen to me ramble about how much I missed Margaret. It was true. After Margaret died, I worried about Tony. He was lost, alone in that huge Belmead mansion, didn't even know how to heat up a meal. I'd go over 2-3 times a week, bring casseroles, tidy up, just so he wouldn't feel abandoned. Gilbert complained, said I was wasting my time, that his dad had staff to take care of him. You did that because you've got a good heart, Connie. Because you're a genuinely good person. And now that my son's decided to be a jerk, I'm not gonna let him treat you like some old furniture he's done with. His voice grew firmer, more resolute. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to my lawyer's office. We'll see how much my son's willing to pay for his so-called freedom. You don't have to do this, I said, but honestly, I was relieved. I knew nothing about divorce, asset division, legal stuff. I'd always left everything to Gilbert, trusted he'd do the right thing. But now, I didn't have that trust. Now I needed someone on my side who knew how things worked. I do, honey, and I'm doing it because it's fair. You gave up your life to build his, dropped out of your teaching degree to marry and raise the kids, never worked outside the home because he said it looked bad for his image, used your mom's inheritance to help him grow his business, sold your family's jewelry for his new car. You invested 35 years in his life, Connie. Now he owes you those 35 years back. He was right. I'd given everything to this marriage, this family. Sacrificed my dreams, my desires, sometimes even my identity to be the perfect wife, mother, daughter-in-law. And now, at 52, I had no career, no savings, no prospects. But what if he fights it in court? I asked, scared of the answer. Tony smiled for the first time since he arrived. Not a happy smile, but a dangerous one. Honey, you haven't seen my business side yet. Gilbert may be my son, but I own 70% of his company. The apartment he lives in, the car he drives, the bank account he uses, all of it runs through me at some point. He thinks he's calling the shots, but if I want, tomorrow he's out on the street with nothing but the clothes on his back. The strength in his words made me realize I'd never seen Tony as the businessman he was. To me, he'd always been the gruff father-in-law, the rich man who looked down on me. But now I saw the man who'd built an empire from nothing, who knew exactly how to wield his power. And for the first time in 35 years, that power was on my side. He called me earlier, I said. Told me I could stay in the house for now until we sort out the assets, like he was doing me a favor. Tony slammed his fist on the arm of the couch. A favor? This house was bought with your mom's inheritance money, Connie. It's in both your names. He can't kick you out even if he wants to. And if I find out he's bringing that woman here or doing anything to humiliate you, he'll see what I'm capable of. We talked until nearly midnight. Tony shared stories from his youth I'd never heard, about how he met Margaret, how hard it was to be accepted by her wealthy family. You know why I treated you so badly all these years, Connie? Because you reminded me of myself when I was young. Poor, hardworking, honest, but poor. And I was ashamed of my roots. Thought being tough on you would prove to everyone I'd overcome my past. But you did overcome, I said. Look at everything you've built, everything you've achieved. He shook his head. No, honey. I never overcame. I just got rich. That's different. You, even coming from a simple family, always had something I never did: dignity. You were never ashamed of who you are, never tried to be someone else to please anybody. That's why my son's losing the woman of his life and doesn't even realize it. When he left, he gave me a tight hug. I'll be here tomorrow morning to pick you up. We're going to Dr. Roberts' office, the best family lawyer in Nashville. And then we're having lunch somewhere nice, like civilized people who deserve respect. I closed the door and leaned against it, still trying to process everything. For the first time in 24 hours, I didn't feel completely lost. It still hurt. I was still confused. I still didn't know what my life would look like moving forward. But now, I had someone in my corner, someone who knew the game, who understood how things worked, who'd help me not get steamrolled by Gilbert and his rush to get rid of me. I checked my phone and saw 3 missed calls from Gilbert. I didn't call back. For the first time in 35 years, I didn't chase after him. I didn't panic, wondering what he wanted, if he was okay, if he needed anything. I took a hot shower, put on clean pajamas, and went to bed. Our bed, which was now just mine. Before falling asleep, I looked at the ring on my finger. Tomorrow, I'd take it off. Not out of anger, not for revenge, but because I finally understood something. I was worth more than 35 years of humiliation disguised as marriage. And if Gilbert couldn't see that, that was his problem, not mine. The phone rang again. It was him. This time I answered. "What, Gilbert?" My voice was steadier than I expected. He sounded surprised, stumbling over his words. I just wanted to check if you were okay. If you understood what we talked about earlier." I understood perfectly. "And you? Did you understand what your dad said to you today?" Silence on the other end. "What do you mean?" "Your dad was here, Gilbert. We talked a lot. And tomorrow, we're going to sort this out the right way." I hung up without waiting for a reply and turned off the phone. Tomorrow was a new day. And for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to seeing what it would bring. I woke to the doorbell ringing insistently. It was 7 in the morning, and Tony was there, punctual as promised, holding 2 coffees from the bakery and a smile I'd never seen on his face before. "Morning, honey." Brought breakfast for us 2 fighters. Fighters. I liked that word. It had been a long time since I felt like a fighter, a long time since I felt like anything other than a shadow of the woman I used to be. I got ready quickly, choosing the navy blue dress that always gave me confidence, the one that brought out my eyes and hid the extra pounds Gilbert never failed to point out. I put on red lipstick, pulled my hair back into a sleek bun. If I was going to face lawyers and paperwork, I'd do it with dignity. I looked in the mirror and for the first time in years, liked what I saw. Not the 17-year-old girl who married head over heels, not the young mom in her 20s chasing after little kids. I was a 52-year-old woman with wrinkles that told stories, eyes that had seen a lot, hands that had worked hard to build a family. I was Connie, and that was enough. In the car, Tony told me he'd called Dr. Robert the night before. "He's already getting everything ready, honey. He's looked into the assets you and Gilbert built together over the years. You'll be surprised at what you're entitled to." My stomach fluttered. Entitled. That word felt foreign to me, who'd always lived asking permission to exist, always feeling like I was in the way, always grateful for scraps of attention and affection. Dr. Robert's office was in one of those shiny downtown Nashville towers, the kind I'd always admired from afar, thinking they were for a different kind of people. Important people, rich people, people who were born knowing how the world worked. But there I was, in the elevator heading to the 12th floor next to Tony, who treated me like I'd always belonged in that world. Dr. Robert was a polished man, gray hair, designer glasses, but his warm way of talking put me at ease. "Mrs. Connie, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Tony's been singing your praises for years." "For years?" Tony talked about me to others and said good things? That was news to me. We sat at a conference table and Dr. Robert opened a folder full of papers. "Let's get to it. In 35 years of marriage, you've built a substantial estate. The house in Green Hills, valued at $1.5 million. The rental condo in the Gulch, another $600,000. Your stake in the company, which, based on the records, you're entitled to 30% of because you contributed seed money from your mom's inheritance. The investments, the cars, all told, it's about $10 million. I nearly fell out of my chair. $10 million? I'd never stopped to think about what we had together. Gilbert always handled everything, always said I didn't need to worry about it, that it was too complicated for me. And how much of that is mine? I asked, voice trembling. By law, half, $5 million. But given the unique circumstances, we can push for more. Tony leaned forward. Doctor, Connie gave up her career to raise the family. She was about to finish her teaching degree when she married my son. Never worked outside the home because he wouldn't let her. Used her mom's entire inheritance to grow his business. Doesn't that count for something? Dr. Roberts smiled. It counts for a lot, Tony. There's something called compensation for moral and material damages. She gave up 35 years of a professional life for this marriage. That's worth something, and it's worth a lot. We spent 2 hours in the office, going over details, signing powers of attorney, planning the strategy. Dr. Robert explained he'd notify Gilbert that day, giving him 48 hours to respond to the settlement proposal. And if he doesn't agree? I asked. Then we go to court, and I can assure you, he'll lose a lot more than if he settles now. When we left the office, I felt different. Stronger, more confident. For the first time in 35 years, I had someone fighting for me, defending my rights, treating me like I was worth something. Tony took me to lunch at the Southern, that fancy restaurant in downtown Nashville I'd always wanted to try, but Gilbert said was too expensive and full of pretension. We sat at a table with a view of the Cumberland River, ordered a shrimp and grits that was to die for, and a cocktail. You know, Connie, Tony said, watching the river traffic, I spent my whole life thinking money was the most important thing in the world, that having a lot of money would make me respected, loved, happy. But these last few years, especially after Margaret passed, I realized I was wrong. He paused, stirring his drink. What matters isn't how much you have, but who you have by your side. And my son, that fool, is throwing away the most valuable person he's ever had. My eyes welled up again, but this time it was different. Not sadness, but gratitude. Gratitude for finally having someone who saw me, valued me, recognized who I really was. Mr. Tony, can I ask you something? He nodded. Why are you doing this for me? Why are you fighting your own son to defend me? He stayed quiet for a while, staring at the river like he was gathering his thoughts. Because I fell in love with you, Connie. The words came out soft, almost a whisper, but they hit me like a bolt of lightning. I froze, not knowing what to say, think, or feel. He continued, avoiding my eyes. Not the way you're thinking. Not a physical, romantic thing. It's deeper than that. I fell in love with your essence, your way of being, your genuine kindness. For the past 5 years, since Margaret died, you've been taking care of me. You'd show up at my house with food, organize my meds, sit and talk when I was down. And you never asked for anything in return. You never treated me like the rich guy who could solve your problems. You treated me like a human being who was hurting and needed care. He finally looked at me. And over those 5 years, I saw how special you are. How you have this light, this strength you don't even realize you have. And at the same time, I saw how my son treated you. How he didn't value you. How he belittled you to feel bigger. And that made me furious, because I saw an incredible woman being wasted on a man who didn't know what he had. My heart was pounding. I didn't know how to respond to this. It was too much to process so fast. First Gilbert's betrayal, now this unexpected confession from Tony. But I've been married to your son for 35 years, I managed to say, barely audible. Was married, he corrected. Now you're free. Free to choose what you want to do with your life from here on out. And what do you want me to do? The question slipped out before I could think it through. He smiled. That gentle smile I'd come to like in the last 24 hours. I want you to be happy, Connie. However you choose. If that includes a stubborn 74-year-old who finally learned to recognize a woman of worth, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. The important thing is you know you have options, that there's someone who truly loves you, who'll support whatever you decide. We spent the rest of lunch talking about life, dreams, things we'd always wanted to do but never had the courage. Tony shared how he'd always wanted to travel the world, see other countries, other cultures, but never had anyone to go with. Margaret was afraid of flying, preferred staying in Nashville. I told him I'd always dreamed of finishing my teaching degree, maybe working with kids, doing something that gave my life meaning beyond being a wife and mother. "Nothing's stopping you now," he said. "At 52, you've got at least 20 good years ahead of you. And with the financial security you'll have after the divorce, you can choose to do what you want, not what you need to survive." When we got back home, there was a strange car in the driveway. A shiny red BMW with a heart sticker on the back window. My stomach churned. It was her. Fiona was in my house. "The nerve," Tony muttered. Not even 24 hours since he ended the marriage, and he's already bringing his mistress here. We walked in and found Gilbert in the living room, packing some things into a suitcase. Next to him, a blonde woman, younger, dressed in designer clothes, scrolling on her phone. When she saw us, Gilbert's face turned red. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Fiona looked up from her phone, sizing me up like she was assessing the competition. She was pretty, I had to admit, but something about her rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was the way she looked at everything like she owned it, like she was already calculating the value of every item in the house. "Came to grab the rest of my stuff," Gilbert said, trying to sound confident but clearly uneasy with his dad there. "And to introduce you to Fiona." Fiona extended her hand with a fake smile. "Hi, Connie. Gilbert's told me so much about you. Such a shame things got to this point, right? But sometimes it's better this way. Everyone moving on." I shook her hand, feeling the cold of her expensive rings, and said nothing. Tony got straight to the point. "Gilbert, did you get Dr. Roberts' notice?" Gilbert stopped packing. "Yeah, I got it. And I think it's ridiculous. Connie's not entitled to half of what I built." "She built it with you," Tony shot back. "With her money, her work, 35 years of her life dedicated to you." "Her work?" Gilbert laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. "What work? She stayed home, took care of things, while I worked 12-hour days to provide for the family." Fiona chimed in. "Exactly, babe. It's not like she had a career, right? Being a housewife isn't a job." That's when something snapped inside me, a rage I didn't know I had, a strength that had been dormant for decades. "Not a job?" My voice came out louder than I expected. "I raised 2 kids single-handedly while you were off on business trips. I ran your house, your life, your schedule, your social life. I hosted your clients, cooked for your friends, decorated your home, took care of your mom when she was sick. I was your personal assistant, your therapist, your nurse when you had the flu, your trainer when you wanted to lose weight." I kept going, the words pouring out like a flood I'd held back for years. "I gave up my dreams to make yours happen. I didn't finish my degree because you said I didn't need to. I didn't work because you said it looked bad for your image. I didn't make friends because you were jealous. I didn't travel because you thought it was a waste of money. I lived 35 years of my life for you, and now you have the audacity to say I didn't work?" Gilbert was pale. Fiona had stopped scrolling and stared at me, her expression unreadable. Tony was smiling, proud. "And you know what, Gilbert?" I continued, pulling the ring off my finger and tossing it onto the coffee table. "I'm grateful. Grateful you left me, because I finally realized I deserve more than scraps of attention and affection. I finally realized I'm capable of standing up for myself, fighting for my rights, being valued by someone who actually sees me." I looked at Fiona. "And you, sweetheart, can have him. You can have a man who doesn't know how to value a woman, who'll trade you in for a younger model when you hit 50, who'll use you up and toss you aside like he did me. It'll be a great lesson for you." Gilbert tried to say something, but Tony cut him off. "Enough. You've said plenty. Grab your stuff and go, and start getting the paperwork ready for the divorce because Dr. Roberts' filing tomorrow. A piece of fatherly advice: take the settlement. If this goes to court, you'll lose a lot more than what's on the table now." They left without another word. Gilbert lugging his suitcase, Fiona trailing behind, furiously typing on her phone, probably posting some vague nonsense about how life's complicated and love's hard. When the door closed, I collapsed onto the couch and cried. But it was a different kind of crying. It was relief, liberation, rebirth. Tony sat beside me and hugged me. "I'm proud of you, honey. You finally showed your true strength." We sat there, two wounded hearts who'd found in each other a chance to start over, to be truly happy. 6 months later, I'd finished my teaching degree, the one I'd abandoned 35 years ago. 3 months after that, I was working at a public school in East Nashville, the neighborhood where I grew up, teaching kids to read and write. And every morning, before heading to work, I had coffee with Tony, now just Tony, no mister, on the porch of our new, cozy little house in Franklin, right by the river. Gilbert married Fiona 2 months after our divorce was finalized. They lasted 7 months. She left him for a real estate tycoon from Atlanta, 15 years younger than him. Now he calls every so often, sounding lost, maybe regretful. But that's not my problem anymore. I have a new life, a true love, and finally, I have myself back.